Devin, thank you for coming on the Red Carpet Roundtable podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate this. This is really cool.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Devin, what attracted you to get into this industry?
Yeah, I mean, so growing up, I always loved movies, and that was something that I always gravitated towards, just being able to kind of get outside your own head. That was just something that I always loved because I grew up as a military Air Force brat. So we moved
Hmm.
place to place. So there would always be, a movie theater on the base. So I would always end up just like there watching movies. But acting and all of that is not something that I really ever thought I was going to get into or do. I didn't know how to even like approach that. So it really wasn't until college I took a intro to theater class and then an acting class. And then as they say, the rest history was written after that. And then like, yeah, I just fell in love with it. And then with the Actor Factory being in Norman, that was a big part of just seeing how it's possible to like really
Hmm.
try to do this
Hmm.
as a career. So then yeah, it was just those first couple projects of really just diving in as an actor and really just putting yourself in that mindset. Yeah, just kept falling more and more in love with it, and then
Amazing.
turned back. So
And you're based in Norman, Oklahoma?
no, I'm in Oklahoma City right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Hmm.
right. Well, we're proud to be, we're also in Oklahoma City. So,
Nice. Okay,
um,
super good.
yes. Boomer Sooners, by the way, big OU fan.
Okay,
Um,
Right, that's
nice.
right.
Yeah.
but that is so awesome how you got into the industry. I always
Mhm.
like hearing stories of actors. It doesn't matter what state we're living in, but it's
Right.
all these interesting stories of testimonies of how they get into the entertainment industry. And
Mhm.
some it's
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm not sure, I'm kind of nervous, but they get into
Right.
it and they don't regret it at all. So thank you for
Oh yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah.
So I want to go way back. Let's
Okay.
go back to hometown of Nebraska.
Yes.
Talk to
There's
me
homework.
about how about homework.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you mentioned that you always watched movies
Mhm.
and so go back to when you started in Nebraska. What was one of the first favorite movies that you enjoyed watching that
Mhm.
really compelled you to go, you know what, I think I want to try this.
Yeah, so just with like the way that I grew up. So I was born in Nebraska, but then like my parents got stationed in like Germany and then Virginia, Maryland. So I was like never in a place more than really like maybe 2 years at a time. So it was always just finding myself in new places. But yeah, the movies that just really like I gravitated towards, like it really started out with like, like Jim Carrey. He was like really big in his heyday with, Dumb and Dumber and The Mask. And just to see like how someone when you watch his movies, you could just tell how much fun he was having and like
Yes.
just how much he was enjoying what he was doing. And I think like that's one of the beautiful things of like when you're watching a movie, doesn't matter if it's comedy, drama, anything like that, just seeing you can just see the love of what these people are doing and their craft too, because it's like he had so much energy in those movies, and especially now knowing what it takes to be in a feature film, to keep that up over like maybe a few months of filming, like that's
Right.
so crazy to me. But yeah, and then I've always been kind of drawn to horror, so like I would always sneak out, turn on the living room TV at night, try to watch a horror movie. I was just so, I guess, just so interested how these like imageries just could like affect me. And it wasn't even so much that like I would have nightmares from it or anything. It was just there was just something about horror movies that I just always gravitated towards.
Hmm.
Um, but then yeah, my dad was a big classic movie fan, so we'd always watch like classic movies. So I remember one of the first times where it was like, okay, this is like a movie. This is like an actor. It was East of Eden with James Dean. And like,
Okay.
yeah, just watching that, it was like, okay, so this is like a classic, classic movie. And then after that, like Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. I had my godfather, he would always take me to movies that maybe I shouldn't have gone to see when I was that age, but he would take me to movies. And yeah, it was just it really didn't necessarily matter with like the genre. It
Mhm.
was just I was just really drawn to just like performances, and I didn't even really know it at the time, but like I just there was just something about watching these people play somebody completely different and then just really believing that. Like, yeah, I was just always gravitated towards that.
I think the fascinating thing about you, and this is just from my perspective of following you on
Hmm.
Instagram, not only are you very busy, but
Hmm.
you are constantly achieving a lot of success from your work. Is
Hmm.
tell us what amount of time do you put in your work? What mindset goes into your work for you to realize, or maybe you don't realize, for you to know that what you're creating is going to be successful?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I appreciate you saying that about that because so for me, it really 2020 changed things a lot for me, and I think a lot of people have kind of echoed that sentiment. Um, so in 2020, it was one of the first times where I just had this mindset change of I'm not going to necessarily let someone like why am I letting someone else dictate if I can act or if I can't act or
Mhm.
if I want to make something? Why was I letting somebody else like it was totally out of my hands? And I mean that's just how it is with acting. But
Yes.
while pursuing that, I just in 2020 something clicked. And then so I had always had this like idea. I've always been like pretty good with coming up with ideas for stories. And I think a lot of that is probably just like I've always been kind of like a loner, lone wolf type, especially like growing up, just moving from base to base. I'd have a lot of friends, but I just loved my alone time. So in that alone time, I just would always just have these ideas and stuff. So whenever that sort of clicked with, okay, I'm going to make something for the first time in
Mhm.
2020, a big part of my life and like my inspiration just for everything is my sister. She has
Mhm.
special needs, she has Down syndrome. And so seeing everything that she's gone through in her life and all these challenges and just, I've always wanted to try to like capture that in a story in a film and especially like get her involved with that so in 2020 when all those things just aligned and I was just finally like you know what I'm just going to do this because we got nothing else to lose at this point like let's just try this so a friend it was interesting too because we filmed the ending of it first our short film it was called A Monster Within we filmed the ending and then we just kind of filled in the story in the beginning of it
Mhm.
and like that, I think was a super interesting way to approach it because it super unconventional, like way
Yeah.
we come up with it, but it was also figuring it out though. So in that, like with your question, I think a big part of it is I also taught myself how to edit like during 2020. And so with that short film, I think it was one of the first times I was able to see like the idea that I have on screen see how it plays out, add in some random music, add in like just a basic edit of it. And then from there, it's like, okay, I can, if I was watching this just as like somebody just randomly watching it,
Yep.
I've seen so many movies that I feel like, okay, I think this would be a really interesting route. Because if I was watching this, I would be fascinated by like this storyline. Da, 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 da. So yeah, just kind of very unconventionally getting into it, screenwriting or writing, getting into it that way, um, was a really interesting thing with that. And then from there, I got to see it play at film festivals. And with
Mhm.
20, so we finished it in like the early 20, it's crazy actually. So a year or 4 years ago, I think next week is when we did our first actual shoot of it. And so just it's
Wow.
crazy. 4 years
Wow.
ago is when we kind of started making the short film. And then everything that's happened since then, it's just insane. But
Yeah.
yeah, I totally got bit by that bug of this is so fascinating to, I guess, with in the context of a career and making this a career, when you're making something, it's at you at least have the ability, you have a little bit more control with it as far as
Mhm.
like putting everything that you can into it, you can kind of make it how you want it to be. And then obviously once you send it off to film festivals or, you go to that route, then it's out of your hands and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's see what the world thinks of this. And so in that, my first experience with that, I was able to see like audiences um reception to like that first project. And it played at a lot of film festivals, which was a shocking kind of thing because I was like, oh, I'd be surprised if we played in one type thing. And then with it being horror related, there was a lot of horror film festivals. So it played at a lot of different types of film festivals. But I would get messages because a lot of these they were still like mainly they weren't really doing physical screenings. They were still kind of doing it over like people could rent it online and stuff. So a
Interesting.
few of them would do where panels, they would have panels where someone would, they would have like the screening of the movie. And then right after the screening, we'd pop up and it'd be like a Q&A type thing. And so I kind of would get to see like some of the people watching it. And so I got to see there was no sound on for me, but I got to see like their reactions to it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it just really hit home, I guess, of like there's with especially nowadays with like comic book movies and these big like blockbusters and these huge movies sometimes sometimes it feels like that independent drama, those independent like horror, those types of films
Hmm.
they get lost in the shuffle. And what I've really been able to see is that there is still a big hunger for these types of projects. Like people are getting tired of these like comic book movies that have no heart to them. And so
Yes.
in line also with your question, I think that's something too, is I always try to put, even if it's horror, I try to put like um real like human elements in it.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
with A Monster Within, it was like a brother-sister relationship, and it just so happened the sister had special needs, but it was like the bond, and it was
Yes.
with what was going on in 2020. I almost viewed that as like a monster that was just this looming monster for everybody. And
Hmm.
so it worked really well with that time frame. And yeah, a lot of people I think just gravitated towards that, the human element of like how far would you go to protect someone that you care about and that you love. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Wow.
that particular short itself is so amazing because I just don't think a lot of people would put their sister with Down syndrome in a film like that.
Hmm.
Number one, but the fact that you did showed compassion for
Mm,
her as
right.
your blood,
Hmm.
and people can relate to that,
Right.
because it's not something that a lot of people may talk about in the film industry, but
Mm,
seeing that on film stirs emotion.
mm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that was something with I think because of seeing that and like people's reactions to that, that just really even hit more home of kind of why we turned it into a feature film. Um, just because I wanted to explore that even more. And
Hmm.
uh there like the feature film, so I wanted her to have a bigger part of the feature film, but what happened while we were filming it, she had some like health issues and I had to kind of change like the approach of how I wanted to still incorporate what we were just talking about. And so again, it's one of those things. It's like, and it's just a life thing though as well. It's like whatever can go wrong will, and so you have to
Right.
just like try to figure out how to still do what you want to do with all these obstacles. And it's like, yeah, I think that's just kind of the beauty of it and just life in general is if when you can overcome those obstacles and still have something that you set out and you made it, I think even if people don't even know those stories about like what we all went through making our movie,
Hmm.
like they still feel this like because that yeah, that's like what a lot of people have said that have seen our feature, especially too, because that was a really like cathartic um experience for me because my character, I put a lot of there's a lot of myself in my character, and I really got to, I guess, one of the first times in a while, like vocalize and just get out all of these like emotions that I've had, especially going through like 2020, all of her health issues, all this stuff. And it's a scene where I'm essentially talking to her. And it ended up being like a one take monologue. And like that's like I get, yeah, a lot of people have just been, I can't watch that scene like anymore because it's just like too, it was just really real. And yeah, a lot of people, I think, like you were saying, like see that, like they can feel that, even if they like. I've had people that have seen our movie that didn't even know she was my real sister, and they were just
Mhm.
like I felt like this is real, and I was, it's just it's crazy to like hear that, these stories of people like watching our movie now and like what they have to say about it, and like I said, yeah, like I said earlier, just keeps reinforcing that like these stories are still so important. And like I hope with everything that's been happening with like just the world changing, the industry changing, yeah, I think more people are going to hopefully start making more things themselves.
Mhm.
And like a way that I heard it recently was somebody said like there's the studio system is going to kind of, I mean, you're still going to have your big studios and stuff, but in a lot of ways individuals are going to become like their own studios and they're going to make their own stuff. And yeah, yeah, I'm such a huge advocate of that now. Of like, if you're an actor, if you're a cinematographer, if you're a director, whatever it is, like, just focus on making like keep focusing on doing what you want to do and like doing auditions and like filming all that. But in that meantime, in that downtime, plan out of like trying to make your own stuff because it you just learn so much from that.
Just seeing you speaking about this film there for just a second, I seen that emotion stir
Mm,
up in you. And it's obvious that
yeah.
it means so much to you that this is your sister and you care and
Hmm.
you love her. And,
Mhm.
I just want to tell you, I'm happy for you, bro, because
Mm,
that's what living is about.
mm.
So true.
That is what being a sibling is about. It's
Yeah.
not about competing against them. It's not about trying to
Hmm.
be better than them.
Mm,
It's just seeing them, loving them, caring for them, and moving forward in life with them. So
hmm.
I just had to say that because I saw that in you there for just a
Right.
second.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, it's been
We can
like
see it in you.
yeah, it's
The
so
one thing I want to say is that you're showing the world, you're bringing awareness to the world,
mm,
and I think it's very important that we
mm.
talk about it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
yes,
And
yes,
it's people need to understand stories. They
Mm,
do, and that's what we as actors,
hmm.
or film directors, but especially actors, we tell people stories.
Right.
And I think that's very important what you've done, especially
Hmm.
your sister is brave
Mm,
to be in front of the camera,
hmm.
and for herself to make herself feel comfortable
Right.
to be there and say, you know what, I'm gonna take a risk and
Hmm.
yes,
tell
Mm.
my story, but
Yeah.
also, being in her shoes, I would understand why, she could be scared or be nervous as well because,
Hmm.
she's telling her story. But also it's
Right.
powerful that she's spreading awareness. And I want to
Hmm.
say that's an absolutely powerful message. And I think it's amazing,
yeah,
and
Like,
I
yeah.
I can't wait for you guys to continue working together and bringing more awareness and
Hmm.
and tell the world about it because I feel like we're not talking much about it. I don't want to say me, but I'm talking about us in the entertainment industry. We're not
Right.
talking much about it, but
Hmm.
also the world. We're not talking much about it. And I
Mm.
feel like that I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but some people are kind of in a bubble.
Yeah.
They're afraid to mention it. But
Right.
what you did and your sister did is powerful and it's spreading
Hmm.
awareness. So I just want to say that your testimony, your story made my hair stick up, gave me chills. I could see it in you. You have so much love for your sister as a sibling,
Hmm.
and family members. We love each other, we support each other,
Right.
but for me, that was very powerful. That
Mm.
you're bringing awareness. So
Yeah.
keep it up.
Yeah. That's the plan. That's the goal. Yeah.
So, you said you watch horror movies.
Hmm.
So I want to dig into that a little bit because I also
Yeah.
love horror movies. But what is your favorite horror
Mm.
genre movie? Like The Conjuring or I don't know. Wow, my mind just went blank. So I'm just gonna leave it The
Yeah, it's like
Conjuring
one of those.
or The
Yeah.
Halloween or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so early on, I was so fascinated and still am. A Nightmare on Elm Street, like the idea of just the whole dream scenario of a lot of the film taking place in dreams, like that always just fascinated me so much. And it's like the one thing that people need in life, sleep. And it's like that's what is ultimately this Freddy Krueger is using against these people. Like I just remember even being a kid and being like, oh, this is good. Like I like this idea. And so yeah, that A Nightmare on Elm Street has always been like a favorite series of mine. Um and that but also like the Scream series. Like I
Okay,
remember
okay.
when it first came out and it was just really interesting how it was almost kind of poking fun of the idea of a lot of these it was just very self-aware and I thought that was just really interesting.
Hmm.
um but yeah, I lately it's been like a lot of like this has been an amazing year for horror movies because like I just saw Smile 2 and
Oh,
like
I haven't seen that yet. So
the
I need to go
lead
see it.
actress in that just gave one of the most amazing performances like
I've
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 seen.
heard, pardon me,
Yeah.
you can say yes or no, but I've heard it's better than the first one. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Okay. I
it
just had to
draws
ask
you in
that.
more because it like opens up the world more. So,
Hmm.
and I mean, of course, they had like a bigger budget and things like that. So
Right, right.
that helps, but yeah, what they did is they just improved on the first for sure.
Okay, okay. Now I remember when Scream first came out, and
Hmm.
I remember yes, so but what's so interesting is it brought awareness to watch your surroundings. It
Yeah,
seemed like because
right.
a lot of people when they watch the Scream, they're like, "Ooh, so cool," but I think I should be saying it's kind of wrong of saying this, but I think maybe it kind of helped law enforcement a little bit because the movie was kind of
Mm.
showing people, hey,
Yeah,
watch your awareness, right?
yeah,
Lock your doors, be careful,
right.
all
Oh
that
yeah.
stuff. And I think it was a really good horror movie. Scream is still going, by the way. It's so
Oh
popular.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
when I first saw it, I was kind of like, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. I was like, really? This scene? And you're like, come on,
Right,
that's not so scary. And then like later on, it's like, oh, okay, okay, I got it. This
right.
is it. So I totally understand. So yeah, Scream and Freddy, I can't
Mm.
deny that one. That one's a
Hmm.
good one. I don't know why, but why do you say you like dream movie scenes?
Yeah, I think I've always had like so I've always been like the type to be a night owl. Like I just I like people joke all the time. They're like, I really do think you are maybe a vampire or like in a past life or something because you like I love like the 1 a.m. to 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m. like that
Me
time
too.
slot. Like yeah, high five on night owls. But I've always struggled with going to sleep. So, but whenever I do sleep, I always have just like the weirdest dreams and like there's been times where I've like I think that's kind of like how some of the last two short films that we just made recently like came because of a dream because I woke up and I was like, "Oh, that was really interesting. Let me write this down real quick." So like it's just really fascinating to me how like yeah, just like the mind works with dreams and how it's like you're almost having these like movies every night that you're experiencing in your head. So the idea of like yeah, just making like a horror movie franchise out of that or even just like in movies in general just like Inception like stuff that just takes place in the mind is just, yeah, there's just so much you can do with that. Like
Hmm.
it, yeah, it's just really fascinating to me.
That's really fascinating. I just want to say this real quick. I love Inception, and
Yeah.
that's a really good dream, interesting
Mhm.
movie.
Oh yeah.
Because I was so glued into it. I still watch it. It's one of my favorite
Hmm.
movie. So yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like to me that 1 to 3 a.m. time frame is your creativity time.
Oh yeah. Like if it wasn't for that time slot and time and just how I was, like that's when I would edit like our feature film. Like I would be up editing and then like I'd start at like, I'd start maybe a little earlier in the night, like 11 p.m. But then like yeah, I'd get so locked in and glued in, I'd like look up at the clock and I'm like, and now it's like 5 a.m. And I'm like, what just happened? But like that's just how it goes. But yeah, it's like it's shocking if I ever go to bed before like 1 a.m. Doesn't matter if I have to get up super early the next. It's just that's how it always has been. So,
That
I
means you
want to
love
go
your
back
work.
to when you mentioned about the editing.
mm,
You
yeah.
know, if you know how to do anything within the industry
Hmm.
and you can edit, it will profoundly lead you to all these other things that you're
Mm,
capable of doing,
right.
because the editing is where the story is created.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And the thoughts from the editing, the thoughts occur,
Yeah.
and it just takes you down this road, and it never ends, it seems like.
Hmm. Well, and see that, so just in a line with that, so with editing, like you said, that's where really you get to kind of see the movie come to life. So what happened with Monsters Within with the feature film is luckily I had time in between. Like we started filming just mainly on weekends. So there would be like slots of time in between all of that. So whatever we filmed, I was trying to do it in like in sequence just to see like
Hmm.
how these things were coming out. And sometimes that doesn't work exactly, but I was able to, before I realized it, like once we were about halfway done with the movie, I realized I had like a nice what they call like an assembly cut of this half of our movie. But with what you were saying is how you can kind of see it come to life. So because of what I saw, the half of our movie, I actually changed the ending of it because it was leading in a completely different direction. And so
Mm.
luckily, because I learned how to edit like that, I think that not only just made the movie better and saved like probably a lot of time of going back and trying to like figure out because looking back, I think the original idea that I had, it was just I don't think it really would have like worked out as well or been as like meaningful. But so since I was able to see these, especially like working with some amazing actors and actresses in Oklahoma and just seeing their performances, it's like I
Yeah.
was so fascinated by just like things that they would add into it because they're putting themselves in it. You can kind of just see like little things. And so it was just crazy to watch half of the movie and be like, okay, let me possibly like let me write some stuff down. But like yeah, it because of editing and because I kind of had that skill of learning that like that, yeah, that really saved and I think has set us up for like where we are right now. So I'm very thankful to have have learned how to edit because it's important.
That's
That's
amazing.
wonderful. Yeah.
It's
It's
absolutely
just,
amazing.
it's really hard for a lot of people to, a lot of filmmakers send it off to edit to
Mm,
different people, and it's just, which is, I think is great for you because when you send your stuff off to someone else, they're
mhm.
trying to figure it out for you.
Right.
But if you aren't there, they can't tell your story
Yeah.
like you can when you're there. And
Right.
that's just the big difference of being the total package, I want to say.
Mm,
You're the film director, you're the producer, you're the writer, and you're the editor. So you are putting this together in the format and the way that you see fit that's going to make it just really stand out in people's eyes.
yeah. Yeah, that's we screened at a festival in LA and beforehand was kind of like just like networking, talking to some people, and there was a guy that uh carried himself very like Los Angeles tight. like very very much like, oh, what are you doing? Like really was only interested in like talking about what he was doing. But then somebody told him like I had made a feature film, and then he wanted to come and talk to me. And then turned out he was actually a professional editor, and he was like going down the line of like a director as well. But then we got to talking about editing,
Uh-huh.
and like that's what he does for a career. And it was crazy because at one point he was like talking about stuff because he was asking like my approach for editing, and I tried to tell I was like upfront about it. I'm like, hey, I was just learning as I was going. There's things that I learned now that I could have saved a lot of time, but I felt like I had to go through all that. But as he's talking to me about all these editing terms and like all these processes and different exports and XML file, all this type of stuff that I've been learning, I'm like following him with what he's saying, and he stopped and he was like, this is usually the point where I can tell where people like stop knowing what I'm talking about. And he was like, this is actually
Mhm.
really fascinating that you actually are following this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of shocked right now too. I'm like, we're both in the same boat. Like,
That's
so yeah,
absolutely amazing.
it was a very interesting moment because I was like, oh, maybe I do know a little bit of
Hmm.
something about editing. So yeah.
Yeah, that moment you need confirmation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right. Oh yeah.
that's true. That's true. And for yourself is
Hmm.
what is your next goal and
Mm.
for to be your next film to produce or
Hmm.
direct or act in?
Yeah, so it's so crazy. Just like I was saying earlier when it hit me that it's like everything that's happened in like 4 years. So after we filmed our feature film, like mindset's still going crazy. Like still got all these ideas. So we've now filmed three other short films that are essentially like proof of concepts in of themselves. So it really kind of just depends which one. Like one of those will be probably the next one for sure, which we're looking at next year. One of them I think will be the easier to pull off with everything that I've learned because like we were really ambitious with Monsters Within, lots of locations. Like we filmed in Oklahoma and Texas, and like it was a wild thing. So the next one, it's only gonna be like two locations, and so that way I can put more focus in on like the story and acting and stuff. So that's called I'm Craving You. And then that actually just played in LA this past week, and it's been actually doing really well at film festivals. And a lot of the same thing is like because it's horror related, so it's been doing pretty well at like horror film festivals. So that will probably be the next one that like I direct and write as far as like our next feature. But then as an actor, I had a supporting role in this World War I horror feature film it's now called Worm. But that was shot here locally in Oklahoma City by Ryan Staple Scott. And
Mhm.
like I'm super excited about that because
That was very cool, by the way.
yeah, that looks it is going to be something that I think will like make a lot of noise just because of how different and unique it is. And they put so much effort into just the look of it and trying to really capture that World War I feel. But also we were filming with essentially like an LED wall. So like he
Hmm.
built like the trenches and things like that he could like take out. So we filmed it in a like a sound stage. But yeah, it was like how they kind of film like Star Wars and Marvel, where it's like the LED wall. So I think they were kind of people have been from what I've seen and what I've heard is like people have been really blown away by the way that it looks. And so like yeah, I'm super excited about that. And then I have another feature film that I'm an actor in where it's a supporting role, but that all the dialogue in that was completely improvised. And like that was just a super unique experience. That one's I believe it's called The Long Road Home is what they're going with. But that also again was shot here in Oklahoma, but a lot of the crew was from Florida. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's
it's
nice.
hoping 2025. It's gonna be a busy.
Wow. Cannot
Yeah,
wait. Cannot
yeah,
wait. Definitely cannot wait for sure. And that's
right.
so awesome. I really want to see the World War One movie. So
Mm,
I'm so excited. I love war movies.
okay,
So
yeah,
I will definitely see it. I see a lot of war movies. I've seen so many. I
Yeah.
have so many favorite ones. So it's it's so hard which one to choose from. But
Yeah, there's definitely like the ones they're it's interesting too because a lot of them are like World War II related. So the fact that
Mhm.
like they went with the World War One storyline, I think that helps. That's going to help them set them apart a little bit with that.
mhm,
So
Yeah.
yeah,
can't wait.
Yeah,
yeah,
let's talk about you as the actor.
okay, yeah,
And, yes, we know that your genre is horror, which, the main genres that really blow up in theaters or just in general, of course, is horror and comedy.
right.
But for you, do you rather just perform in horror, or is it that's what you love to produce and write? Let's talk about you as an actor. What
Yeah.
do you love to perform in? Is it anything, or do you have specifics?
Yeah, I mean, so acting, that's really like my main love and my main focus. So for me, it just really boils down to like the character. Like if it's something that I'm really, I could either, it might be something that could be completely different than me, which I find so fascinating, or if it's something like I can put some of myself into it, playing a villain, playing, someone kind of like in the middle, playing a good guy. Um, I do love comedy. It's kind of funny that like I really haven't got to explore that because it's like drama and horror
Yeah.
thriller. Like that's like yeah, that is definitely right now what it seems to be like I've been like drawn to. And I just love that world. So I'm definitely drawn to those. But I did do a short film where I got to kind of explore a little bit more of like the comedy side. And I did a thing a few years ago where I played this like I was like a pothead who robs a dispensary, a weed dispensary, and it was like super over the top and super comedic and like it was a lot of fun to be like, okay, I'm not crying or like screaming or getting really intense. I was like, this is actually it was actually a lot harder too because it's like comedy is like so difficult because
Yeah.
that fine line of like if you do go too over the top, it's like, people are just so subjective, especially with like different humor. So it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, comedy is always like I've always heard too, it's like that's why comedians always like are super amazing dramatic actors, is because if they can master the comedy, it's just so easy for them to just slide right into the like the dramatic roles. But yeah, I mean, it, any type of movie, any type of role, it doesn't matter the genre. Like yeah, I just love acting, and if it's something that interests me, I'm game.
Now, as far as going back to acting again, for those who will be listening,
Hmm.
of course, you started out at the Actor Factory. What
Right.
was some of the things that you learned the most? And this is a two-parter.
Hmm.
What's something that you learned the most in acting class? And what can you tell those who are going to be listening a great way to get started in acting that's really going to help them blossom?
Yeah, I think I would say probably the most important thing that I learned is just you have to just get like really comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like you have to be, that's why I think that's also is like, especially when you're first starting and you're taking acting classes, and if it's not something you're really familiar with, it can be very intimidating. And like you almost want to there's almost it almost feels like a pressure that you have to be perfect in even acting class, but it's like that's not the point of acting class. It's like you're
Right.
supposed to mess up, you're supposed to try and take risks. I think you guys said that earlier, like taking risks, and that's like such a big word for me, especially these last few years of just like I want to take risks, and I've definitely learned. And you have to, I think, get to that point and figure it out. But like, yeah, just not being afraid, just to like just leave it all out there,
Mhm.
because if especially if you have a great acting teacher, because they'll dial you in,
Oh
and so
yeah.
it's like it's there. I took and again, harkening back to 2020, which was fascinating, is I took a few like the Zoom acting classes, right, where we were just doing it over Zoom, but I did it with it's called the Carol Hickey Acting Studio down in Austin, and they were so um bordering like the method style.
Hmm.
And the teacher that I took the class with, like she was like, I'm going to push you. She was like, I see a lot in you, but I want to get that out of you. So she's like, I'm gonna be like really hard on you and I'm going to like just be on you. And I was like, that's totally fine with like that's what I love. So like yeah, I respond really well to that type of approach. But yeah,
Same.
I think it's just like also, you know, if somebody says something to you of like, don't take it personally. Like don't take anything personally because it's like especially in the acting class setting, they're just trying to make you better and they want you to be the best that they can be. So some people, I think it is, especially like you said with the part two of like trying to get started with it is almost just like really relish in how that intimidation feels because that can help prepare you for like when you step on a set and it's like even more intimidating because you got the bright lights and they got all these
Right.
people around.
Cameras and everything.
Yeah. So it's like just think of it in that mindset of like this is preparing you for it's like a job, it's preparing you to be better at your job. Um and then with your part two question of like how to kind of get involved with things, it's interesting that there's so much more. I feel like just because of the way that Oklahoma's been just like booming,
Yeah.
there's a lot of it's crazy that there is so much more opportunities to like really get involved with things. I remember when I was really kind of first getting involved, somebody told me one of the best things that you can do, and it's funny now looking back because I really was watching like so essentially being like an extra on a movie. If you've never been on a movie set before, maybe do that a couple times. Like you definitely will do a lot of sitting around, but that will prepare you for when you're on set. There is going to be a lot of downtime. But yeah, you just really get to learn and you just get to kind of watch like the actors, how they're
Hmm.
doing, how they're approaching a scene. One of the first things that I did like a featured extra on was that show, The Vampire Diaries. And so
Hmm.
the two main guys in that, like one of them who I really liked in the show and was really fascinated by like a lot of the different types of performances that he would give on that show. Well, I got to see him actually in action, and it was interesting because he was very it was almost like he was like his approach to it was very not what you would expect, I guess. He was very
Hmm.
kind of like unsure of himself, but like when you watch the show, would never have guessed that. Like he's a very like nails all of the emotional scenes, like kind of like has a great range, but watching him kind of like it just seemed like he was very just like the way he carried himself, you
Yeah.
would see him snap into character and it would be like, okay, this is fascinating. So
Welcome
yeah,
back.
yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, go on a couple of film sets, be an extra. There's a bunch of places now that offer classes. And then yeah, if you have, if you're in college and take a college acting class, do an intro to theater class, just try to like get different experiences and then figure out what works best for you while
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
doing that. And then yeah, you'll figure out what's best for you. But it's, like with everything, it's a journey. So
That's
Yeah.
that's absolutely. And one thing about being an extra is that's how you can learn as well if you really want to
mhm.
be an actor. And
Right. Oh yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's true because I
Yeah.
hear a lot of stories of people who want to be an actor and they say,
Yeah.
you should be an extra. And they say, okay, I'll give it a shot. And they go on set and then that's where they are like, okay, yes, this is
Yeah.
really for
Like
me.
it clicks for
Right.
them.
And then
Yeah.
unfortunately you may have some few people that will be like, well, it's not really for me. You're like,
Right.
okay, but I'm gonna keep being an extra to see if I
Yeah.
like it more. And that's how I think
Right.
I love it when people are being an extra on set because I
hmm
think, like you said, it's that how people learn and observe
Right.
actors and
Yes. Yes.
directors, but mainly more actors and actresses because that's where they can if they may be looking up to Dare or Devin or something like that and say, I want to be on extra on the set and see how
Hmm.
they act and say, okay, I see how it is. I want to do it. And
Right.
that's they keep doing being an extra, but they also go to class being an
Yeah.
actor as well. So you're absolutely right. They should do and be an extra, and
Mhm.
they would definitely have fun. There'll be no regrets because I've heard no bad comments about being an extra. They all have came back and said they loved it. So I
Right.
think anybody who's listening, go for it, be an extra, you
Yeah.
know, and you would
Absolutely.
definitely will not regret it.
Yeah.
So thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that.
I think everyone has been an extra at some point in their
Right.
career, but just like you said, Ryochi, I think it's so important because you know when you are on set of a SAG film or a feature film or a short and you're an extra, that downtime is
Hmm.
the time that you're looking over here,
Hmm.
getting perspective.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And
also, pardon me, also you have the main actors looking at you, paying attention to you.
Mhm. Right.
I remember an actress told me because she did extra and she was paying, I think she was, don't quote me, but she was playing a waitress. And
Okay.
there are these two main characters on set, and the directors told you, okay, you're gonna bring them their food and
Right.
ask what they want on the menu.
Yeah.
And she was nervous. She was like, but I haven't trained for this. But
Yeah.
what? And she was like, you're gonna go out there and just be like you're in a restaurant. And she was like, oh boy. And she went out there and she was like, the lady and the gentleman just looked at her dead serious in the face, and she was like, oh no, what do you want on the menu? And then she's like, she went back and got the food and brought it back. She was so nervous. And
Oh
the
God.
actors are like, we can tell you were nervous, but you did amazing. And she looked at them and she was like, of course I was nervous. I didn't know
Right.
what I was doing at all. But she loved it. And, and
Mhm.
she's, being an actress, but that's like my point. It's
Right.
like Daryl says, you go on set and you have
Hmm.
people paying attention to you, and
Hmm.
that's how you never know you work with these people on set again, and you're like, wow,
Right.
I'm actually an actor now. I'm working with you. I was an extra on your set a long time ago. I can't believe it, and it's
Right.
just you hear all that powerful testimony.
Hmm.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, like, some people hate being an extra, but
Hmm.
there's so many discoveries that have happened being an extra. Johnny Depp was an extra when he started and
Right.
exploded from there. So you
Yeah.
just never know where God's going to have you, and it's your
Hmm.
moment.
Exactly.
It's supposed
Yeah.
to be, you're going to be in different spaces and places, different times, and all of a sudden someone's going to see you and go, okay, let's
Mhm.
see what you can do.
Absolutely,
Well,
and you're
and
right,
that's the
Daryl,
thing
because
too.
Johnny Depp, I remember he talked about it. Don't quote me again, but he did talk about he was an extra,
Yeah.
and and it's kind of powerful testimony for all
Right.
for us to talk about because it's like when you're on set, you never know the opportunity, and like Daryl said, God's perfect.
Exactly.
When
Yeah.
when the moment comes, the
Hmm.
moment will come, and
Right.
look at Johnny Depp now. A good example. Look how far he is, but
Yeah.
it just to me it proves to be an extra is
Hmm.
amazing, number one. Number two, you get to see how the camera and lights, everything are
Right.
working, right?
Yeah.
And you get to see, okay, Daryl just finished the scene. He disappeared. He's changing another clothes. He's coming out, and it's like all that stuff that you see, and you're like, wow, that's so cool, right? And
Right.
I think that is what give you the journalism and the excitement and the camera
Hmm.
and the lights and the makeup and all that stuff and that is why I think I don't want to say I think that's why a lot of people love acting because they
Hmm.
just fall in love with it and they were like, I love this. It's fast
Right.
paced. You just go left and right. I mean, people say I don't have time to sit down and take a break, but it's fun as well. You're moving. It's
Yeah.
like you
Adrenaline
have
gets going and you're like, I
yeah,
love
that's what I'm saying. You have
yeah.
that. You want
Oh
to
yeah.
keep going, and it's like
Right.
people are like, calm down, calm down. No, I gotta go. I gotta go on this end. I gotta go here. I gotta go up the stairs. I gotta go down the
Right.
stairs. It's like, yeah, but like Daryl said, God will help you. God will let
Mhm.
you know when it's the time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and what you said is you're able to watch the lights and stuff in the camera.
Hmm.
So with our feature film, so everyone that helped out on it, even like just the crew, everybody is an actor. Like, but we've all had experiences, whether it be like some have maybe worked as crew members, or like some were just extras and got to kind of see, or some actors with those experiences. But we all utilized those things of watching like how they set up the lights, how they, you know, the camera movement, things like that. Like we all learned that by just doing it as an actor and watching other people do it. So, wow, you can learn a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Because you have people as an actor who are extra, they may come to you and come to a camera person or a director and says, "Hey, I want to learn how to set up the lights, or I want to learn
Right.
how you're doing this camera angle, right?" And it to
Mhm.
me, it's just chilling, but it's awesome and it's exciting that
Mhm.
people who are extra want to be on set and learn. And they're like, they ask questions like, wow, for example, real quick, they may say, yeah, Devin and Daryl, how did you come down the stairs so fast? Or I like that cool look you did, or something like that. Teach me, or something like
Right.
that. That's,
Yeah.
and you look at them and you're like, well, that's so cool. You're an extra, but you want to learn from me,
Right.
right? And I
Yeah.
think, it's powerful for me to hear that. And I'm so happy that they give opportunities for people to be
Mhm.
extras on set and learn.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Devin, I think my last question for you is two parts. How happy would your younger self be of you now?
Hmm.
And what would you say to your younger self today?
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. I think my younger self would probably wouldn't believe like some of the stuff that's happened and like be like, really? You've been in movies and you made a movie? Like, come on. Like, but I think that dream I think was always in there. So I think would definitely be very, very happy, I think, with like everything that has happened. And like I think also too, just like it's also just with like the trajectory of like what we've been building to. Um yeah, I just think I think my younger self would be very happy to just to see like we've followed our dreams essentially, and
Yeah.
we're still trying
Yes.
to, and I mean that's just every kid has those dreams, and to be able to actually be pursuing it I think is an amazing thing. So and what was part two?
Part two was what would you say to your younger
To my
self
younger self,
today?
that's funny. um yeah, I would just say it's almost a similar type thing of like don't be afraid to really just put yourself out there and like take risks. uh I think I was always like the type to I would never really be like vulnerable with people, I guess,
Hmm.
growing up, because I wanted people to not, I guess, see me that way, think of me as like a very like just like strong, like especially being surrounded by a lot of military men and stuff. You just everyone has that sort of demeanor about them. So I think growing up, yeah, I didn't let a lot of people in. And I think that's something like I would probably tell myself is to just like it's okay to be vulnerable. And especially with like I think that was like probably with especially again back to Monsters Within, like that's the most vulnerable I've ever been. And it's you just never know what people are going through. And like with sharing your vulnerabilities with people, you just never know how that can affect someone, how it can help someone. Um, so yeah, I think that'd probably be the biggest thing I'd say to my younger self. Yeah.
I love that. I
I love
love
that.
that, bro. I
I love
love
that.
that
That's for
because
sure.
you're right. Too many men, whether military or not, we are
Hmm.
so afraid of embracing that vulnerable
Mm.
space within us, and
Hmm.
it keeps us from experiencing the very things that is going to grow us bigger than we ever imagined.
Right.
That
Yeah.
part.
Hmm.
So,
Mm.
Totally
Yeah.
agree with Daryl. That's, I everything what you said, Devin, is absolutely true. Don't give up, keep moving
Hmm.
forward, and don't be afraid. That's the big
Yeah.
thing, key question I heard from that. It's like, don't be afraid
Hmm.
and take chances. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely true. If we don't take chances, then we regret it, right? So,
Oh,
right.
definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, my two questions for you,
Yeah.
Devin, is that as yourself, as a young person, you
Hmm.
know, when you get to 5 years from now,
Mm.
what do you hope
Mm.
to have accomplished from now to 5 years? And my next question for you, it's kind of going back in time. If you could go back when
Mm.
you were a little child,
Hmm.
where's could you have done anything trying to make this more achievement that you ever thought you saw yourself being here as yourself? Um, my mind's kind of going in
Oh
circles,
yeah.
but those are my two questions. If you can answer them.
Yeah, so I think with the first one with like goals for like, the next 5 years, that's always it's always such an interesting question. And it's very it's almost difficult to say in some ways because of just with 2020 to now, like never in a million years would have thought like I'd be where I'm at with
Hmm.
what we're doing and all that. So, and that's just 4 years. So it's like in 5 years, obviously the goal, because I've always been the type to have like big goals and always like trying to like work towards something has always been like really important to me and like helped with things like that. So in 5 years, with just I think continuing to do what I'm doing, um, but with like let's say the next film, I really would. The goal is to obviously make it a little bit bigger, a little bit
Hmm.
better. Just like, and it's just improving on those things that you learn when you make it for the first time. And then yeah, I think it's just like following a similar trajectory of what we've been building. Like if we keep going where the route we're going, I think we'll hit some of these goals that like we really want to set out to. And it's interesting too because it's like with with Monsters Within, I've got to talk to distributors because we've gotten like four distribution offers. So I've gotten to now, even in the past like 2, 3 weeks, after talking to these distributors, I have a even better like mindset input of that side of things and like what they're looking for, what is really like, yeah, just like how things are working for them. So with all of that stuff that I've been learning, just putting all that towards the next project essentially.
Hmm.
And then yeah, also just at the same time doing the acting thing, auditioning and just getting better as an actor. And that's one thing I'll say too is like being a filmmaker now has made me a better actor because like I just
Hmm.
like listen more or I've learned to just listen better, I guess. So that has fascinated me. So I look forward to the goals of being able to put, the experiences of like making my own films, but then like in as being an actor in like other projects, bigger things and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens with 2025. That should be a
I
pretty
can't
big
wait.
year, pretty interesting year. But then so again, what was part two?
Well, Part two is I figured
Yeah.
I was gonna say to you. I'm sorry, forget what I was
Oh
about
no, it's
to
all
go.
good. I
But
like have
what
thousands.
is this is I always like this because this is an important
Yeah.
question. I think powerful question for me is who a person or an actor or film director
Hmm.
really emotionally
Mm.
impacted your life up till now?
Good question, Raj.
Yeah, that is a great question. It's like I feel like I've always gone through like phases in my life where it's like certain projects have always like interested me, and then like you have your experiences and stuff. But like I would say there's the filmmaker Terrence Malick. Like everyone that knows me is always like every time I say Terrence Malick, somebody that knows me is watching this and being like, "Oh boy, here we go." But Terrence Malick is such a fascinating filmmaker for me because his movies are so, I don't know if you've ever seen his movies, but like they are so poetic and they're so, imagery is so beautiful. And the way the camera, like the way it's just his cinematography, like everything about it, like there's a lot of voiceover. So a lot of the times when the actors are on screen and they're acting, they don't even quite know what they're doing. Like he's like building the story as he's going along with it a lot of the times. So he's been a major influence in like defining kind of figure for me because it's like again, I can see like his love of just this passion of film and cinema. And every time I watch his movies, it's just like I'm just in awe of it. And it definitely motivates me to be able to try to. We have elements of that in Monsters Within, where it's kind of like an homage to him. But we did a short film recently called The Meaning, and so that's actually on YouTube right now. We just released it like the last few weeks, but that's like my homage to him with like cinematography and all that. So he's been super. Just everything he does has always moved me. But then there's a filmmaker called Derek Cianfrance. And so he hasn't, I think he's made three movies, maybe four now, but the first two has deeply like affected me. So the first movie was Blue Valentine. And around that same time, like I was in like a relationship, and that movie really shows the beginning of a relationship and the end of a relationship. And like, yeah, I was just super drawn into that and his style of filmmaking. But then he made one of my favorite movies of all time, which is called The Place Beyond the Pines with Ryan Gosling. And that movie is actually one of the major influences for Monsters Within. So it's like all these people that I love. And I mean, obviously, like Scorsese and like Christopher Nolan and like these people, like just seeing all these amazing directors what they make and create, like yeah, I mean I can watch almost anything and be like super inspired by it. So like it's definitely a very interesting question. And then yeah, it's just people that I know personally that are also pursuing this. I love seeing like, and I think that's one of the great things about like Instagram, Facebook is like seeing like even just actors too, like Daryl stays busy. Daryl's always posting stuff. I'm like, Daryl's like, that's so inspiring to see like people just doing what they love. And so it's
Hmm.
like that motivates me as well because it's like we're all in this together in a lot of ways. And
Yes.
a lot of people might think of eh, there I have dealt with in the past like where it does feel like it's kind of a competitive thing, and some people are very like gatekeepy about it. Like there is people out there that are like that, and that's just kind of just how it is. And you're not going to get along with everybody, but the ones that like I have really just like yeah, just been really inspired by is and it's a lot of the people that I've been able to work with too. Just doing what they love, and like it keeps motivating me to keep going. And yeah, I think that's another goal though too, is I will say is I would love to get to the point where I can like work with more Oklahoma talent or like bring more in, because it's hard with an indie feature to have you know like bring all these actors in, and because especially a lot of the stories that like I'm drawn to, it's very like contained.
Hmm.
But like yeah, eventually to get to a point of like just to really just showcase so much because there's so much talent here. It's insane. Like that was another thing too, is making our movies, just seeing these actors. And like
Hmm.
we did a casting call and I was just like blown away after every like video itself. I was like, oh my God, this is tough. But like, yeah, I think that's for sure one of the goals is keep staying here in Oklahoma as using it as a base and just really trying to grow along with the
Hmm.
industry that Oklahoma is turning into. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that question. I
Yep.
totally, you know, it's true. We all support each other and,
Mm.
Instagram and Facebook and,
Right.
and shout out to Daryl, of course, he's posting stories and, but, you bring out a good point, right? It's that the love,
Hmm.
right? The love of being in this entertainment industry. And
Yeah.
I shout out to you as well, Devin and Daryl and all the actors out there, including myself. But if we don't
Hmm.
love what we're doing, we wouldn't be posting anything, and
Right.
that's a really good point. And it's just showing love what we're
Mm.
doing and saying, hey, this is my personal story, what we're going through as an actor and myself. But everybody is like, yeah, this is kind of like what I'm going through being an actor. This is so cool, and it's just moving
Right.
how we all come together and support. So thank you
Absolutely.
for
Yeah.
sharing that, Devin. I just had to ask that question to
Yeah.
let the audience know a little bit more about you.
Right.
Yeah. I think that, you know, yes, there may be a little gatekeeping here and there, but I just live by the philosophy that, we're all trying to get to the same space and place.
Hmm.
We're just getting there at different times. And,
Right.
I just want to live by the method of just being nice to each other
Mm.
because that's, you know, every one of us at some point in our career are going to be going through a great time and a slow time,
Oh
True.
and
yeah.
lifting one another up and having coffee with each other or just having conversation.
Right.
That's what living is about. And that's why, honestly, I changed my page name to Acting and Motivation because I don't care who you are.
Hmm.
I'm always going to be nice to you. I'm always going to be cool to you. Whether you like me or not, I may annoy you, but you are going to be, you're going to always get the same type of response from me. And that is me being cool with you because
Hmm.
this shit is not easy,
Right.
period.
No,
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
that
easy for anyone.
and that's one
100%.
thing I'll say, Daryl, is like it's been, yeah, I mean, I think we've seen each other in person like twice,
Yeah.
but like every time I've seen you, like, yeah, you just super just nice and just also just genuine. And it's like rare these days. So it's like it's so nice to see somebody that's like that is just wanting to like help people and like be nice to people because that really is just such an important thing, especially in today's world. A lot of that's
Right.
lacking.
100%.
So like, yeah,
Yes.
that's something I want to say. I really appreciate just like how you are as a person, and you're somebody that's definitely like like someone to look up to as like a role
Hmm.
model. Like, this is how a man should be. Like, yeah.
For
That
me,
means a lot, but I just don't see life any other way. Just
Mm,
very
because
true.
every single one of us may be an actor, a writer, director, a producer, but in our personal life,
hmm.
we may be going through something. And
Right.
that
Right.
one comment, that one, hey, bro, or whatever it may be the one thing that's uplifting your day. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
why get jealous because this person has won an award or this person did this? Or I don't care about that. What I
Hmm.
care about is being cool with everybody and everyone being cheered on because you know what? We're going to get there at one stage or another, and
Right.
that's what this is about.
Yeah.
You're right, Devin. I met Daryl
Yeah.
and
You
twice.
did?
Yeah, of course you
But
did.
you guys know each other?
But
Right.
but you're right. You know, as my
Mhm.
co-host Daryl and I, we love what we're doing, but
Yeah.
Daryl is very Junine, English is bad, but very nice person, and
Yeah.
and you're right, and you want to surround yourself with people in this industry with positive mindset who
Mhm.
have the same dream, same goal as us,
Right.
and we may have different ideas, but we all come together as a family,
Hmm.
and that's the one thing about the entertainment industry, especially it's from Instagram. You have all these actors from other states just messaging
Hmm.
you, making comments and say, "We're so proud of you, keep it up." And you're like,
Right.
"Yeah, I know. Hopefully we see each other, and all this stuff." And and it's to me, it brings joy. It brings
Yeah.
joy to me that, we don't know what every one of us and everybody in these states or even Oklahoma, we don't know what everybody's going through in personal life, but we have a
Right.
moment to bring happiness to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm so proud of you. Keep it up." Right? And
Right.
supporting each other. And I think, you know, it's actually absolutely amazing for me. And
Hmm.
and I totally agree with you, Devin.
Right.
We wanna grow the Oklahoma film industry, and it's growing. It's
Hmm.
blooming, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you, Devin, for sharing everything, and
Yeah.
keep it up.
Right.
So before we go, Devin, I would like you to give the world a message from Devin and let them know your thoughts.
Hmm.
And that's how we'll close the show. The floor
Yeah.
is yours.
It's a lot of things like we've talked about in this whole interview. It's just don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to um, try to connect with people because especially just in this journey and like what everyone has said, you just never know what people are going through. And if you're able to, and it's something that's important to me, if you're able to change someone, change someone's life for the better with the art that you make, like that's the end goal at the end of the day. So just I think we need more people that are doing that and really putting themselves out there. And yeah, but the main thing is, yeah, don't be afraid to take risks. So
And thank you for
Thank you.
coming on the Red Carpet Roundtable. We
thank you
appreciate
guys for
you.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
Daryl. And
be sure to share any of your films, reels, whatever you may have on. We'll be more than happy to share it, get you out there in front of the people that's following us from LA, etc.
Yeah,
But we loved having you on, and we appreciate your time with us tonight.
yeah,
thank you,
thank you
Devin, for
guys.
coming on. We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.
Till
Thank
next time.
you. Talk to you soon.
See you guys.